The night was quiet in the small village of Hadong. The rice field stretched out under a dark sky filled with stars. Most people were already asleep in their homes. The air was cold, and a soft wind moved through the empty streets. Park Do-won was not asleep. The old farmer sat on his wooden porch, drinking warm tea and looking at the sky. He was 58 years old, with rough hands from decades of working the land. His wife had died 3 years ago, and now he lived alone in the farmhouse where he had spent his entire life. His daughter Yuna was visiting from Seoul, where she studied medicine at the university. She was sleeping inside. Do-won liked these quiet moments. The world felt peaceful, simple. He took another sip of his tea and watched the stars. Then he saw it. A streak of fire cut across the sky. At first, Do-won thought it was a shooting star, but it was too big, too bright, and it was getting closer. The light grew larger and larger, falling toward the earth like an angry god throwing a stone from heaven. The old farmer stood up. His teacup fell from his hands and shattered on the wooden floor. He watched with wide eyes as the fireball screamed over his head and crashed into his rice field with a sound like thunder. The ground shook. Windows in the farmhouse cracked. Birds flew screaming into the night. For a moment, Do-won could not move. His heart was beating fast. His legs felt weak. But something inside him pushed him forward. He grabbed his flashlight and ran toward the crash site. The rice field was destroyed. A deep crater had been carved into the earth, and smoke rose from the center. Strange lights flickered in the hole. Colors that Do-won had never seen before. Blues and purples and silvers that seemed to dance in the air. He walked closer, pointing his flashlight into the darkness. The beam of light found something metal, a shape. It looked like some kind of vehicle, but not like any car or plane Do-won had ever seen. It was smooth and curved, made of material that seemed to glow from inside an escape pod. Do-won did not know this word, but that is what it was. He moved around the crater, trying to find a way down. His old boots slipped on the loose dirt, but he kept going. When he finally reached the bottom, he found the pod had cracked open on one side. And inside, there was a woman. Do-won stopped breathing. She looked human, but she was not human. Her skin had a silver color to it, like moonlight had been turned into flesh. Her hair was long and white, spreading around her head like a crown of snow. She wore robes made of strange fabric that changed color when he looked at it from different angles. And she was hurt. Very badly hurt. Dark purple blood covered her stomach. A deep wound crossed her body, and more blood was pooling beneath her. Her eyes were closed, and her breathing was weak and slow. Do-won forgot his fear. He forgot that this woman was not from Earth. He forgot everything except the simple truth that someone was hurt and needed help. He had been raised to help others. His father had taught him this. His wife had taught him this. It was the most basic thing a person could do. He climbed into the broken pod and pressed his hands against her wound, trying to stop the bleeding. Her blood felt cold, like water from a mountain stream. Her skin was smooth as glass. "Yuna!" He shouted toward the farmhouse. "Yuna, come quickly. Bring the medical kit." Inside the house, Park Yuna woke to the sound of her father's screaming. She was 24 years old, in her final year of medical school. She had come home for the winter holiday, wanting to escape the stress of the city and spend time with her aging father. She jumped out of bed and grabbed the emergency medical kit that she always kept in her bag. As a medical student, she had learned to be prepared. She ran outside in her sleeping clothes, not caring about the cold. What she saw in the rice field made her stop running. The crater, the smoke, the strange lights. It looked like something from a movie, not something that could happen in real Hadong. But her father was calling for her, And Yuna was not the type of person to freeze when someone needed help. She forced her legs to move and climbed down into the crater. When she saw the silver woman, she felt fear. Real fear. This was an alien. An actual being from another world. Everything Yuna thought she knew about the universe changed in that single moment. But then she saw the blood. She saw her father's hands pressed against the wound. She saw a person dying. Medical training took over. Yuna pushed her fear aside and knelt beside the alien woman. She opened her kit and began working. She did not know if human medicine would work on an alien body, but she had to try. "Hold this here," she told her father, placing his hands on a thick bandage. "Keep pressure on the wound." Do-won nodded. His face was pale, but his hands were steady. Yuna worked quickly. She cleaned the wound as best she could. The alien's blood was strange, thick and dark purple, but it still flowed like blood. The wound was deep but clean, like it had been made by a very sharp blade. She used all her bandages, all her supplies, trying to keep this stranger alive. As she worked, the alien woman's eyes opened. Yuna gasped. The woman's eyes were like nothing she had ever seen. The pupils were shaped like cracked glass, and they glowed with a soft purple light. There was something ancient in those eyes. Something that had seen more than any human could imagine. The alien woman looked at Yuna. Her lips moved, and she spoke words in a language that made the air feel heavy. The sounds were beautiful and terrible at the same time, like music from another dimension. Then her eyes closed again, and she was unconscious. Yuna finished her work. She had done everything she could. The bleeding had slowed. The alien woman was still alive, still breathing. But she needed real medical care, not the simple first aid that Yuna could provide in a rice field. "We need to call for help," Yuna said. Do-won nodded slowly. "I will call the emergency number." He climbed out of the crater and walked toward the house. Yuna stayed with the alien woman, holding her cold silver hand. She did not know why she did this. It just felt right. No one should die alone. 20 minutes later, the first vehicles arrived. But they were not ambulances. They were black cars with no markings, driven by men in dark suits. More vehicles followed. Trucks, vans, all black, all silent. Men with guns surrounded the crater. Men with strange equipment began taking readings and photographs. A helicopter appeared in the sky, its spotlight cutting through the darkness. A man in an expensive suit walked toward the crater. He had a cold face and eyes that showed no emotion. His name was Kwon Tae-sun, and he was the director of the Korean Aerospace Security Division. His job was to handle situations exactly like this one. He looked down at the alien woman, then at Yuna, then at the old farmer who had come back from the house. "You saw nothing tonight," Kwon said. His voice was flat and hard. "You will speak of this to no one. This never happened. Do you understand?" Do-won stepped forward. "She is hurt. She needs a hospital. She needs to come with us," Kwon said. He waved his hand, and soldiers moved into the crater. They pushed Yuna aside and lifted the alien woman onto a metal stretcher. Yuna wanted to protest. She wanted to fight. But there were too many soldiers, too many guns. She could only watch as they carried the alien woman away. As the stretcher passed her, the alien woman's eyes opened one more time. She looked directly at Yuna, and something passed between them. A connection. A moment of understanding. Then the soldiers loaded her into a black truck, and the convoy disappeared into the night. Yuna stood in the destroyed rice field, watching the lights fade into the distance. Her hands were covered in purple blood. Her heart was heavy with a feeling she could not name. Something told her this was not over. Something told her she would see that silver woman again. She was right. The alien woman woke up in a white room. The walls were white. The ceiling was white. The floor was white. There were no windows. A single bright light hung above her, making everything look flat and empty. She was lying on a metal table. Her arms and legs were tied down with thick straps. Machines surrounded her, beeping and flashing with lights. Tubes connected her body to bags of clear liquid. She could feel needles in her skin. For a long moment, she did not move. She only looked at the ceiling and remembered. She remembered the attack on her ship. She remembered the explosion. She remembered climbing into the escape pod as fire consumed everything around her. She remembered setting the course for a random planet, anywhere, somewhere safe. She remembered the crash, and she remembered the girl. The young human woman with kind eyes who had held her hand in the darkness. The door opened with a hissing sound. People walked in wearing white suits that covered their entire bodies. She could see their faces through clear plastic windows in their helmets. They looked afraid. Good, she thought. They should be afraid. But she was too weak to do anything. Her wounds still hurt. Her body still needed time to heal. So she lay still and watched as the humans examined her like she was an animal in a cage. The leader of the scientists was a woman named HFY. She was 42 years old and had spent her entire career studying space. She had always believed that life existed on other worlds. Now, standing in front of an actual alien, she felt like her whole life had been leading to this moment. Her vital signs are stable, HFY said to her team. Body temperature is lower than humans. Heart rate is slower. But she seems to be recovering well. Can she understand us? Asked one of the younger scientists. HFY looked at the alien woman's face. Those strange purple eyes were open, watching everything. There was intelligence in those eyes. Deep intelligence. And something else. Something that made HFY feel small and young, like a child standing before an ancient teacher. I think she understands everything, HFY said quietly. Over the next several days, the scientists ran many tests. They took samples of her blood and skin. They scanned her brain with machines. They measured her strength and her reflexes. They photographed every part of her body. The alien woman allowed all of this. She did not fight. She did not speak. She only watched with those ancient eyes, accepting their tests with a strange dignity. The results amazed. Everyone thought her blood contained elements that did not exist on Earth. Her cells could repair themselves at impossible speeds. Her brain showed activity in areas that humans did not even have. She was not just different from humans. She was beyond them. More advanced in every possible way. Director Quan Tyson reviewed the reports in his office. He was not a scientist. He did not care about the wonder of first contact or the miracle of alien life. He only cared about results. What can she do? He asked HFY. What weapons does she have? Where did she come from? Is she alone? HFY frowned. She has not spoken to us. We do not know anything about her civilization or her technology. Then make her talk. Sir, she is clearly recovering from serious injuries. Perhaps if we give her time, if we show her kindness, she will choose to communicate with us. Quan laughed. It was not a nice laugh. Kindness? Doctor, we do not know if her people are coming to invade us. We do not know if she is a soldier or a spy. We cannot afford to be kind. We need information. He ordered new methods. The alien woman was moved to a small room with no bed. The lights were kept on all day and all night, never letting her sleep properly. Her food was reduced to small amounts. She was left alone for hours, then suddenly surrounded by soldiers who shouted questions at her. HFY protested strongly. This is wrong. This is torture. She is an intelligent being who deserves basic respect. She is not human, Quan said coldly. Human rules do not apply. Then what makes us better than animals? What makes us worthy of contact with other civilizations? If we treat her like this, We prove that humanity is cruel and barbaric." Quan's eyes grew hard. "Doctor, you are a scientist. Your job is to study her. My job is to protect this country. Do your job and let me do mine." GA wanted to argue more, but she knew it was useless. Quan had the power here. She could only watch as the alien woman suffered. But not everyone followed Quan's orders completely. There was a young lab assistant named Han Somi. She was 26 years old, quiet and shy. The kind of person who people often forgot was in the room. Her job was to clean the equipment and organize the files. She was not important, but Somi had a good heart. Every night, when the other workers went home, Somi would go to the alien woman's cell. She would leave extra water. Sometimes she would leave small pieces of bread or fruit. She knew this was against the rules. She knew she could lose her job, or worse. But she could not watch someone suffer and do nothing. On the 7th night, the alien woman finally spoke. Somi was placing a cup of water by the door when she heard the voice. It was soft and musical, like wind through silver bells. And it spoke in perfect Korean. "Your kindness is noted, child." Somi jumped back in shock. She stared at the alien woman, who was sitting against the wall, her silver skin dull and gray from exhaustion. "You can speak our language?" Somi whispered. "I can speak all languages. It is a small gift." The alien woman smiled weakly. "You are the only one who has shown me mercy in this place. I will remember your face." Somi did not know what to say. She knelt down slowly, keeping a safe distance. "Why are you here? Why did you come to Earth?" The alien woman was quiet for a moment. Her purple eyes looked far away, seeing something that Somi could not see. "I was running," she said finally. "Running from my responsibilities. Running from the weight of rule. I have been a leader for so long. I wanted to find a simple world, a quiet place where I could rest, where I could be nobody for a little while." "A leader? You mean like a president?" The alien woman laughed softly. It was a sad sound. "Something like that. But much older, much heavier. What is your name?" "My true name would break your mind if I spoke it. But in your language, you may call me Seraphil." Somi repeated the name. "Seraphil. That is beautiful. Thank you, child." Seraphil looked at Somi with sudden seriousness. "You should leave this place, soon. Something is coming, and I cannot protect you when it arrives." "What do you mean? What is coming?" Before Seraphil could answer, the lights in the facility flickered. Every computer screen went dark for a moment, then turned back on, showing the same message in burning golden letters. "You have taken what is ours. Return her, or face judgment." Alarms began screaming throughout the building. Soldiers ran through the hallways. Scientists shouted in confusion and fear. Somi looked at Seraphil with wide eyes. "What is that? Who sent that message?" Seraphil closed her eyes. When she spoke, her voice was heavy with sadness. "My people. They have found me." She opened her eyes and looked at Somi. "I am sorry, child. I am so sorry for what comes next." In his office, Director Quan stared at the message on his screen. His hands were shaking. For the first time in his life, he felt real fear. He grabbed his phone and made a call. "Get me the president, now. Tell him we have a situation." Outside the facility, far above the Earth, something was moving through space. Many things, thousands of things. Ships larger than cities, traveling faster than light, crossing the vast emptiness between stars. They were coming, and they were angry. 12 hours after the message appeared, the sky changed. It started slowly. People around the world noticed that the sun seemed dimmer than usual. They looked up and saw shapes in the sky. Dark shapes, huge shapes. At first, many thought it was clouds. Strange clouds, but clouds. Then the shapes grew larger, and larger, and larger still. They were not clouds. Ships descended from the heavens like gods returning to earth. Hundreds of them. Thousands of them. Each one was bigger than anything humans had ever built. The largest ships were the size of mountains, their metal bodies covered with symbols that glowed with golden fire. They filled the sky from horizon to horizon, blocking out the sun and turning day into night. The world stopped. Cars crashed on highways as drivers stared upward in shock. Planes turned around in the air, afraid to fly near the massive vessels. Television stations interrupted their programs to show the same images again and again. Every phone, every computer, every screen on Earth displayed the armada that now hung above their planet. In cities around the world, people ran into the streets. Some screamed in terror. Some fell to their knees and prayed. Some simply stood and watched, their minds unable to understand what their eyes were seeing. Military forces everywhere prepared for war. Missiles were armed. Fighter jets launched into the sky. Submarines rose from the ocean depths. Every weapon that humanity possessed was aimed at the alien fleet. But everyone knew the truth. Against ships that size, against technology that could cross between stars, human weapons were like toys. In Korea, Park Yuna watched the sky from her father's farm. She had not left Hadong since that night in the rice field. She could not stop thinking about the silver woman with the purple eyes. She had tried to contact government officials, tried to find out what happened to the alien she had helped save. No one would tell her anything done. Now she understood why her father Do-won stood beside her, his old face pale with fear. "What do we do?" he asked quietly. Yuna shook her head. "I do not know. I do not think anyone knows." Then the broadcast began. Every screen on Earth showed the same image. A figure appeared, standing on what looked like the bridge of a massive ship. He was humanoid but not human. He stood over 2 meters tall, with skin the color of polished bronze and eyes that burned like small suns. He wore armor made of material that seemed alive, shifting and moving like liquid metal. He was beautiful. And he was terrifying. When he spoke, his voice echoed not just from speakers, but seemed to vibrate in the bones of every person who heard it. The sound came from everywhere and nowhere at the same time. "I am High Admiral Vorn of the Celestial Sovereignty. Our empire spans 10,000 worlds across 100 galaxies. We have existed for longer than your species has walked upright. We have ended civilizations older than your planet." He paused, letting his words sink into the hearts of 8 billion humans. "And you have committed an act of war against us." Yuna felt her legs go weak. She grabbed her father's arm to keep from falling. 12 your days ago," Admiral Vorn continued, "a small escape pod entered your atmosphere. Inside that pod was a passenger of great importance. You found her. You took her. You imprisoned her. You tortured her." His eyes seemed to look directly at every person watching. "That passenger is Her Eternal Majesty, Empress Seraphel the Undying, Mother of the Sovereignty. She who holds the stars. She is the living heart of our civilization. She has ruled our people for 10,000 years. And you, in your ignorance and cruelty, have caused her harm." In Site 17, Director Kwan watched the broadcast with a face as white as paper. His hands were shaking so badly that he had to grip the edge of his desk. The alien woman he had been torturing was not just any alien. She was their empress, their god. He had made the worst mistake in human history. "You have 72 of your hours to return Her Majesty unharmed," Admiral Vorn said. "If she is not returned, if she has been damaged beyond healing, then this world will burn. Every city will fall. Every ocean will boil. Your species will become nothing but ash and memory. This is not a threat. This is a promise. This is a certainty." The broadcast ended. The screens went dark. The sky remained filled with ships. Silence fell over the earth. The kind of silence that comes when hope dies. In Site 17, Quan rushed to the alien woman's cell. He found her sitting calmly against the wall, her eyes closed, her silver skin still dull from the suffering he had caused her. "You," he said, his voice breaking. "You are their empress?" Seraphel opened her eyes slowly. There was no anger in her gaze, only exhaustion, only sadness. "I am." "Why did you not tell us? Why did you not say who you are?" "Would it have mattered?" Seraphel asked quietly. "You knew I was not from your world. You knew I was injured and alone. You chose cruelty anyway. My title would not have changed your nature." Quan fell to his knees. All his power, all his authority, meant nothing now. He was just a small man who had made a terrible choice. "Please," he begged. "Please, tell them to leave. Tell them we did not know. Tell them to spare us." Seraphel looked at him for a long moment. Then she slowly shook her head. The sovereignty does not negotiate. They do not forgive insults to the throne. Once admiral, Thorn arrives for judgment. Nothing can change his course. She paused. "I tried to warn your assistant, the kind one. I told her something was coming. But even I did not think they would find me so quickly. Then what can we do? How can we save ourselves?" Seraphel closed her eyes again. "I do not know if you can. I am tired, Director. Tired of ruling. Tired of being worshipped and feared. I came to your little world hoping to find peace. Instead, I found the same cruelty that exists everywhere in the universe." "Not everyone is cruel," Quan said desperately. "There are good people on this planet, billions of them. Children, families, people who had nothing to do with what happened to you. I know." Seraphel's voice was soft. "The girl who found me in the field. The young woman who held my hand while I was dying. She was kind. And the assistant who brought me water when no one was watching. She was kind too." She opened her eyes and looked at Quan. "But kindness from a few does not erase cruelty from many. And truthfully, Director, I am tired of protecting those who show me no mercy." Quan felt tears running down his face. He had never cried before, not even when his own mother died. But now, facing the end of everything, he wept like a child. "Please," he whispered. "Please do not let us die." Seraphel did not answer. She simply turned her face away and closed her eyes. Above the earth, the celestial sovereignty waited. Their weapons were ready. Their judgment was certain. In 72 hours, they would have their answer. And somewhere in Hadong, Park Yuna looked at the sky filled with alien ships and made a decision. She did not know if she could change anything. She did not know if she could save anyone. But she knew she had to try. She had held that silver woman's hand in the darkness. She had seen the gratitude in those ancient purple eyes. There was a connection between them, something she could not explain. She would find a way to reach the Empress. She would remind her that humanity was worth saving, or she would die trying. The world was falling apart. In the 48 hours since the alien fleet arrived, human civilization began to crack like thin ice under heavy boots. Governments blamed each other for the crisis. Old enemies pointed fingers and prepared for wars that no longer mattered. People rioted in the streets, breaking into stores, fighting over food and water. Religious groups declared that the end times had come. Millions fled to the countryside, trying to escape cities they thought would be destroyed first. The fear was everywhere. It spread faster than any disease. It poisoned everything it touched. In underground bunkers, military leaders argued about what to do. Some wanted to attack the alien fleet, to die fighting rather than surrender. Others wanted to give the aliens whatever they wanted, to beg for mercy. Most just sat in silence, knowing that nothing they could do would change anything. The combined military power of Earth was calculated against the alien armada. The mathematics were simple and brutal. If humanity fought, they would last approximately 6 hours. Then nothing would be left but dust and silence. In Site 17, Director Kwon called an emergency meeting. The most powerful people in the Korean government sat around a long table, their faces gray with fear. President No himself attended by video link, his eyes hollow and tired. "We must use the Empress as a hostage," Kwon said. His voice was desperate, wild. "We will threaten to kill her unless the fleet withdraws. They worship her like a god. They will not risk her life." Dr. Baek Jie stood up so fast her chair fell over. "Are you insane? She is their empress, their divine mother. If we kill her, they will not just destroy Earth. They will hunt down every human in the universe. They will make sure our species is erased from existence. We are already going to be erased." Kwon shouted back. "At least this way we have some power, some control." "You have no control," Jihei said coldly. "You never had any control. You were given a chance to show kindness to a stranger from the stars, and you chose cruelty. Now we all pay for your mistake." The room erupted in argument. People shouted over each other, fear making them loud and stupid. No one noticed when Jihei quietly left the room. She found Han Somi in the hallway outside, sitting on the floor with her head in her hands. The young lab assistant looked up when Jihei approached. "Dr. Baek, what is going to happen?" Jihei sat down beside her. "I do not know. Nothing good, I think. The Empress spoke to me," Somi said quietly, "before the fleet arrived. She said something was coming. She told me to leave." She looked at Jihei with wet eyes. She could have been angry. She could have hated all of us for what was done to her. But she tried to warn me. She tried to protect me. Jihei put her arm around the younger woman. "There is still good in the universe, Somi, even in an empress from another galaxy. We just have to hope that good is stronger than cruelty." Far away from Site 17, Park Yuna was making her own plans. She had spent the last 2 days calling every contact she had. Her uncle worked at the Blue House, the center of Korean government. Through him, she learned the location of Site 17. She learned how many guards protected it. She learned that the Empress was still alive but weak, still imprisoned in her white cell. But knowing was not enough. She needed to act. She found help in an unexpected place. Cho Hyun-woo was a young agent of the Korean Aerospace Security Division, one of the men who had come to her father's farm that night. He was only 28, idealistic, new to the job. He had watched his superiors torture an injured woman and felt sick to his soul. When Yuna contacted him through her uncle, Hyun-woo agreed to help immediately. "I joined KSD because I wanted to protect my country," he told her as they drove through the night toward the Taebaek Mountains. "I wanted to do something important, something good. Instead, I watched us become monsters. I cannot live with that." Yuna nodded. "Neither can I. That woman saved my life when she looked at me with those eyes. She did not hate me even though my people hurt her. She just looked tired and sad. I want to give her a reason to believe in us, even if it costs our lives." Yuna thought for a moment. "Yes, even then. Because if we do nothing, everyone dies anyway. At least this way, we die trying to do something right." Hyun-woo smiled. It was a sad smile, but real. "Then let us do something right." They reached Site 17 as dawn approached. The facility was built into the side of a mountain, hidden from the world. Guards stood at every entrance, but they were distracted by the chaos of the situation. Many had abandoned their posts to be with their families. The ones who remained were tired and frightened. Hyun-woo used his security codes to get them through the outer gates. They moved through empty hallways, following the path he had memorized. The facility felt like a ghost town. Most of the scientists had fled. Only the most dedicated, or the most afraid, remained. They found Somi by accident. She was carrying a tray of food toward the Empress's cell when she rounded a corner and nearly walked into them. "Agent Cho?" she said, confused. "What are you doing here? Who is this woman?" Yingwu grabbed her arm gently. "Somi, we do not have time to explain. We are here to free the Empress, to take her back to her people." Somi's eyes went wide. Then, slowly, she smiled. "I will help you. Follow me." The three of them moved through the facility together. Somi knew all the back passages, all the places where cameras did not reach. She led them through storage rooms and maintenance tunnels until they finally reached the Empress's cell. The door was locked with a complex security system. Hyunwoo worked on it with his equipment while Yuna watched the hallway. Every second felt like an hour. Every sound made her heart jump. Finally, the door clicked open. Yuna stepped inside and saw the Empress for the second time. Seraphel lay on the cold floor. Her silver skin faded to gray, her white hair tangled and dirty. Her wound had reopened, and dark purple blood stained her ruined robes. She looked like a fallen star, beautiful even in her suffering. Her eyes opened when she heard them enter. Those purple eyes, filled with ancient wisdom, found Yuna's face and widened slightly. "You," Seraphel whispered. "The girl from the field." Yuna knelt beside her. Tears ran down her face, but she did not notice them. "Yes, I am here. We are going to take you home." "Why?" The Empress's voice was weak, confused. "Why would you risk your lives for me? Your own people imprisoned me. Your own people hurt me." Yuna took the Empress's cold hand in her own, just like she had that first night under the stars with purple blood on her fingers. "Because someone has to," she said. "Because not everyone on this world is cruel. Because if we let fear make us into monsters, we do not deserve to survive." She squeezed the Empress's hand gently. "You came here looking for kindness. Let me show you that kindness exists. Let me prove that humanity is worth saving." Seraphel stared at her for a long moment. Something changed in those ancient eyes. Something like hope, small and fragile, flickered to life. "You are either very brave or very foolish," the Empress said. Yuna smiled through her tears. "Maybe both." With great effort, they lifted the Empress from the floor. She was weak, but she could stand with help. Hyunwoo took one side, Yuna took the other, and Somi led the way back through the tunnels. Behind them, alarms began to sound. Someone had discovered the empty cell. Soldiers would be coming soon, but they did not stop. They did not hesitate. 3 humans carried an alien Empress through the darkness, racing against time, hoping that one act of kindness could save them all. The mountain exit opened onto a ridge overlooking the valley. Dawn was breaking, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. But above the colors of sunrise, the alien fleet still hung like a second sky, dark and terrible and waiting. Seraphel looked up at her ships and lifted one trembling hand toward the heavens. A beam of light descended from the largest vessel, bright as a star, warm as summer sun. It surrounded the 4 of them, lifting them from the ground, pulling them up toward the waiting armada below them. Soldiers burst from the facility and shouted in confusion. Director Quan ran outside, screaming orders that no one followed. But it was too late. The Empress was going home, and she was bringing 3 humans with her. The beam of light carried them upward through the clouds, through the atmosphere, into the darkness of space. Yuna held tightly to the Empress with one hand and reached for Hyunwoo with the other. Somi pressed close to them, her eyes closed tight, her body trembling. They should have been cold. They should have been unable to breathe. But the light protected them, wrapped them in warmth and air like a gentle embrace. Below them, Earth grew smaller and smaller. The oceans became pools of blue. The continents became shapes of green and brown. All of human civilization, all 8 billion lives, fit into a sphere that Yuna could cover with her thumb. So small, she thought. We are so small. And yet, we thought we could cage a goddess. The light delivered them to the largest ship in the fleet. They materialized on a platform of polished metal, surrounded by walls that reached up higher than any building on Earth. Strange lights floated in the air. Music played from somewhere, haunting and beautiful, in notes that human ears had never heard before. And everywhere, there were soldiers. Thousands of them stood in perfect formation, their armor gleaming, their weapons ready. They were tall and bronze-skinned, like the Admiral from the broadcast, beautiful and terrible, their eyes burning with inner fire. When Yuna looked at them, she felt like an ant standing before an army of giants. The soldiers saw their empress. In a single motion, every one of them fell to their knees. The sound of thousands of armored bodies hitting the floor echoed through the vast chamber like thunder. "Your Majesty," they said together, their voices joining into one. "Your Majesty. Your Majesty." A figure pushed through the kneeling soldiers. Admiral Vaughn, the one who had delivered the ultimatum to Earth, strode toward them with fire in his eyes. His face was twisted with rage, and his hand rested on the weapon at his side. Then he saw his empress, bloodied and weak in the arms of 3 small humans, and his rage transformed into something worse. Something colder. "Your Majesty," he said, his voice breaking. He rushed forward and fell to his knees before Seraphel. "What have they done to you? Who is responsible? Name them, and I will make their entire world scream for 1,000 years." Seraphel allowed the Admiral's medical servants to take her from Yuna's arms. They laid her on a floating platform that glowed with healing light. Color began to return to her silver skin immediately, but before she allowed them to treat her fully, she raised one hand to stop Vorn's orders. "Wait," she said. Her voice was still weak, but it carried across the silent chamber. "These 3 humans behind me, they are not to be harmed." Vorn looked at Yuna, Hyunwoo, and Somi like they were insects. "They are from the species that imprisoned you, that tortured you, and they are also the ones who saved me." Seraphel pushed herself up on one elbow, ignoring the protests of her medical servants. "They came into the facility that held me. They risked their own lives, defied their own people, to carry me to freedom, at cost to themselves, with no promise of reward." The Admiral frowned. Why would they do such a thing? Because they believed it was right. Seraphel looked at Yuna. "Tell him, child. Tell my Admiral why you came for me." Yuna's legs were shaking. Her heart was beating so fast she thought it might explode. She was standing on an alien ship, surrounded by thousands of warriors who could destroy her world with a thought. Every part of her body screamed at her to run, to hide, to be silent. But she had not come this far to be silent. "Because kindness matters," she said. Her voice was small at first, but it grew stronger as she continued. "Because I saw a stranger bleeding in my father's field, and I helped her. Not because of what she could give me. Not because I knew she was an empress. I helped her because that is what people should do. We should help each other." She took a step forward, even though every instinct told her to step back. "Your Majesty came to our world looking for peace, looking for kindness. And yes, some of my people failed that test. They were cruel and afraid and stupid. But not all of us. Not everyone." She gestured to Hyunwoo and Somi. "We 3 are proof that humanity can choose mercy over fear. We are proof that your faith in kindness was not wrong." She fell to her knees, not because she was forced to, but because it felt right. "I beg you, Your Majesty, do not judge all of humanity by the actions of a few. There are children on my world, families, people who never hurt anyone. They do not deserve to die for crimes they did not commit." Silence filled the chamber. No one moved. No one breathed. Admiral Vorn looked at his empress, waiting for her decision. The fate of Earth hung on what she said next. Seraphel closed her eyes. When she spoke, her voice was tired but clear. Admiral, I left my throne because I was weary of power, weary of making decisions that ended civilizations. I went to that small blue world seeking something I have not known in 10,000 years of rule. Simple kindness. Freely given. She opened her eyes and looked at Yuna. I found it. Not in their governments. Not in their powerful. But in a farmer's daughter who saw a stranger bleeding in a field and chose to help. In a young woman who brought me water when I was suffering. In an agent who turned against his own people because his conscience would not let him stay silent. She sat up fully. And despite her wounds, despite her exhaustion, the full weight of her authority settled into her voice. Earth is young, fearful. They acted from ignorance, not true malice. I will not condemn entire species for the cruelty of a few. Not when others showed me grace. Vorn bowed his head. As you command, Your Majesty. But what of the ones who did harm you? Should they not face justice? Seraphel was quiet for a moment. Let them live with the knowledge of what they almost destroyed. That will be punishment enough. Fear is a poison, Admiral. They poison themselves. We do not need to add to their suffering. She turned back to Yuna, Hyunwoo, and Somi. You three will be returned safely to your world. And your species will be given a choice. They may join the celestial sovereignty as a protectorate. They will learn from us, grow alongside us, share in the wonders of the galaxy. Or they may remain isolated, but unharmed. The decision will be humanity's to make. Yuna felt tears running down her face. Happy tears. Relieved tears. Tears she had been holding back since the moment she first saw alien ships in the sky. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you, Your Majesty. Seraphel smiled. It was a small smile, tired, but genuine. Thank you, Park Yuna of Earth. You reminded me why I have ruled for so long. Why I have protected so many worlds. It is not for the powerful or the mighty. It is for the kind ones. The brave ones. The ones who choose mercy when fear would be easier. She reached out and touched Yuna's face with cold silver fingers. Your people have potential. Do not let fear define you. The universe is vast and full of wonders and terrors. But kindness is the rarest thing of all. Protect it. Nurture it. Let it spread. The three humans were taken to a smaller ship and flown back to Earth. They landed in the rice field, where everything had begun. In the same crater where Seraphel had crashed just days before dawn as they stepped onto the soil of their home world. The alien fleet began to withdraw. One by one, the massive ships rose higher into the sky, growing smaller and smaller until they disappeared among the stars. The sun returned. Birds sang. The wind blew through the rice fields like nothing had happened. But everything had happened. And nothing would ever be the same. In the months that followed, humanity changed. The governments of the world formed a new council to discuss the sovereignty's offer. Arguments continued, as they always did among humans, but there was a new feeling in the air. A sense of possibility. A sense of hope. Yuna returned to medical school. Hyunwoo quit KASD and started working with international organizations to prepare for possible contact with alien civilizations. Somi went back to her quiet life, but she was interviewed many times about her experiences with the Empress. She always told the same story about bringing water to a prisoner in the night, about small acts of kindness that changed history. Director Kwan was removed from his position. He was not punished by any court, but he lived the rest of his life in shame, knowing how close his cruelty had come to destroying everything. On the first anniversary of the day the fleet appeared, Yuna received a package at her door. Inside was a small crystal that glowed with soft inner light. Beautiful and warm, it pulsed gently like a heartbeat. There was also a message. written in golden script that floated in the air when she opened the box. For the one who chose mercy. The sovereignty remembers. May this light remind you that even in the darkness of space, kindness shines brightest. Your friend across the stars, Seraphil. Una held the crystal to her chest and looked up at the night sky. Somewhere out there, among billions of stars and countless worlds, an ancient empress sat on her throne and remembered a small blue planet. A planet that had been given a second chance. She smiled and made a promise to herself and to the universe. Humanity would not waste that chance. They would learn. They would grow. They would become worthy of the kindness that had saved them. And someday, perhaps they would take their place among the stars. Not as conquerors. Not as warriors. But as what Seraphil had always hoped they could be. Kind.